Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So excited to be here with you guys. So exciting. Let me know where you're watching from, what you're drinking, all of the things. So excited to be with you guys. I am in Tennessee today and I am drinking, what am I drinking? I'm drinking a hibiscus and rose tea today is my drink of choice. So let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what you're drinking. Give people a few minutes to join us. Let's see. Make sure I have everything set up correctly. Hi, Susanna. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Mackenzie. So excited you guys are here. It's so odd to be solo on the screen today. I don't have Christine with me, my partner in crime, but I'm really excited to be here with you guys. Let's see, we've got North Carolina. Oh, you're not far from where I am. Drinking water, love it. Panama Beach, Florida. How's the weather down there, Lisa? Is it nice and sunny and cool, or are you still getting storms? Let's see. Melbourne, Florida. Oh, hey, Sabrina. Hi, my love. Shanksville, PA. Oh, we've got a couple PA people. Love it. Drinking Plexus Slim, ginger turmeric tea, ginger water. Ooh, lots of ginger happening today. Love it. Love it, love it. I had my typical morning matcha latte a little bit before this, and now I'm on to my rose and hibiscus tea, which is my new favorite. Oh, Lisa says the weather in Florida is beautiful. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Oh, that was my cat. He likes to come in when I'm talking. So if he's back here trying to get these little things off the wall, I can't control him. He's beyond my reach. So, oh, thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Good morning. Hey, Renee. Happy late birthday to you, beautiful soul. Oh, I'm so excited to be with you guys. So excited. So, in the process of creating this coffee conversation, Christine and I were talking and we were trying to decide what we should talk about this week. And I realized that I've never just sat down with you all and let you know who I am. If you've taken a course with us, obviously you know who I am. I'm on the podcast all the time. I do events with Christine all the time, but I've never actually just sat down and said, this is me, here I am, here's my story, and here's what I'm hoping to bring to the table. And so that's really what today's coffee conversation is all about, is just coming in connection with you all and letting you all see me as I am in ReikiCafe University so we can create those really strong connections throughout the community. So I'm so excited to be joining with you guys today. And of course, the title of today's podcast, if you're listening, is the top 10 lessons from a spiritual life. And so in the process of creating this, I had to actually sit down and go through the past 22 years that I've been alive and think about what are the top 10 takeaways that I've had from this lifetime. And it's amazing how much of an enlightening process that is, having to actually sit down and look at, if I could tell someone only 10 things about what I've learned from this lifetime, what would those 10 things be? And so I encourage you, if you're listening or if you're hearing this recording, I encourage you to actually sit down and ask yourself that question, because not only did I come up with some really beautiful lessons that I've seen in my own life, but I also learned a lot about myself. And so it was a really amazing process to prepare this coffee conversation today, to really sit down and think to myself, what is it that are my top takeaways from this lifetime? So if you have the time, if you have the inclination, I would encourage you to try it for yourself. And before we even get started, I would love to know in the chat, just first thing that comes to mind, if I were to ask you, what's your number one takeaway from your life? What would be the first on your list of top 10 things? Leave it in the chat. I would love to hear from you guys what first comes to mind, even if you would change it later. I just want to know what pops into your mind as one of your top takeaways from this lifetime. And I know that's a big question. I had weeks to prepare mine, and I'm putting you guys on the spot, but I would love to know if you could leave it in the chat. And in the meantime, we do have a fantastic giveaway happening at the end of this call. We'll be giving away 4 scholarships for our amazing Reiki coaching program. So be sure to stay to the end and make sure you comment in the chat if you want to be entered into the giveaway. If you did send me a message already or comment on Facebook or send us an email about what you liked best about our new website, you have already been entered into the drawing. So thank you for that. But be sure to stay to the end for the results of the giveaway and also to see a never before seen video of myself when I was a student in the program. So stay tuned for that. Let's see, we've got some beautiful responses coming in. Marianne says that she's responsible for herself. Such a good one. Lisa Norwalk, self-care so you're able to care for others. Absolutely. Kaylin, the love that surrounds me. Yes, all the time. Susanna, follow your intuition. Oh, I love it. Susanna is a previous student in our Reiki coaching program, and she knows that that's one of my number one teaching points is knowing your intuition. I love it. Renee said that we are far more capable than we've been taught. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so important. Beautiful. If you think of things as I'm talking, as I'm sharing my own top 10, I would love for you to put them in the chat. Keep the chats coming. Today's really going to be an opportunity to, like I said, come together as a community. And so as I'm sharing my stories, I want to hear yours. Marta says, doesn't even know what her top takeaway was. I know, it's difficult. It's really difficult to come up with just one. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll go ahead and dive in because we do have quite a bit to cover today. And I'm really excited because we're going to do today's coffee conversation a little bit different. If you're joining us live, I actually have a little slideshow presentation prepared. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you all could just let me know in the chat if you're seeing my screen. So right now you should be seeing the YouTube channel, but I just want to make sure that you can see the presentation and see my screen so that when I start sharing, you guys will see the slides. If you could let me know in the chat. It looks like yes. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. I'm gonna double check here, get everything set up. Oh, I love it. Sabrina says your true purpose is never what you think it is. Absolutely. So true. Okay, perfect. So it does look like our slides are presenting. So like I said, if you have any thoughts at any point in time during this presentation, please put them in the chat. We'll come back to them at the end. So welcome to today's coffee conversations. This is the first one that I am doing solo, and I am so honored to be able to be here with you all today. And I just want to say from the start, thank you to each and every one of you who are here witnessing me as I'm sharing my story and my lessons. I truly believe that we find healing in finding solidarity with others. And when we share our stories and we connect over them, I truly believe that it facilitates healing on so many levels beyond what we're consciously aware of. So I want to thank you all for creating a space for me today to be able to share this with you. And I'm so excited to get to know you even more through the process of today. But of course, the topic for today is the top 10 lessons from a spiritual life. So the top 10 lessons that I have learned in the process. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I am your host for today, Isabel Wells, but everybody here at Reiki Cafe calls me Izzy. I truly believe that we are human beings, but also spiritual beings. We are those spiritual beings having a human experience. And so I think it's important that you get to know both the spiritual side of me and the human side. So the spiritual side is what you'll see most often here when I'm interacting with Reiki Cafe. I am a Reiki coach and co-founder of the Reiki coaching program. I'm also the founder of Intuitive Reiki, which we'll be sharing more about in the months to come. So stay tuned for that. I'm a co-creator for ReikiCafe University. So all of the websites and the emails and the courses and everything like that, I've been blessed to be able to have a hand in. And of course, I'm here supporting you all in the community as well. So Christine and I like to say that I am the alchemist to her visionary. She has the dreams and I make them reality. So I'm also a shamanic Reiki practitioner and a channeler. I channel a collective known as the Council. And I'm also an intuitive guide. And I think that is For me, the most important side of my spiritual self is my ability to connect to my own and facilitate others in connecting to their intuitions. If you've had a session with me, we've probably done something called inner voice work or soul speak, where I help you to actually give voice to the intuition within. And that is one of my all-time favorite things to do in the spiritual side of this life. On the human side, I am a graphic designer. I'm an aerialist. And what that means is when you go to the circus and you see people doing flips from things that are hanging from the ceiling, that's what I do. I'm an avid reader. I absolutely adore reading. My goal this year is to reach 100 books. I think I've already read, I think I'm on 10. I think I just finished my 10th book. I'm a hobby photographer, so the pictures that you see on these slides were actually taken by my brother, but I do like to take pictures in my free time. I love taking pictures of nature. Nature photography is one of my favorites, and also taking the mundane things in life that we often pass over and finding a way to spotlight them so that we can see the true beauty of even just the little things that pass us by so often. I'm also a tech wizard, like I mentioned before. So I help many, many people, mostly female entrepreneurs, with their tech side of their business, setting up Google Drives, editing podcasts, video editing, so many things. I absolutely love finding ways to make these visions that we often have in our heads come into reality. And of course, tech is a big part of that. I'm also a writer. I'm actually in the process of writing a book right now, which is really exciting. And in addition to all of this, my mind absolutely adores all things psychology, anatomy and physiology, and quantum physics. I was actually in school for a while, both as a nursing major and a psychology major. So I am really passionate about finding the science behind the spirituality, not because I think it needs to be proven, but because I think it's amazing to be able to find the bridge between the two. So if you ever have any questions about the science of things or the psychology or how quantum physics works or anything like that, I'm your girl. Now, of course, those are who I am today. Those are the things that I've collected and evolved and grown into in my journey. And that's how I'm presenting myself to you today. But of course, who I am right now is very different than I was a year, 2 years, 21 years ago when I was born. So there are some things that you need to know about me in order for these lessons that I'm going to share to make sense. So the purpose behind sharing these is not to be woe is me or to invite pity or anything like that, but it's truly to show you that oftentimes when we find spiritual practitioners or teachers who we really look up to, we tend to put them on a pedestal of saying, oh, they never have this anxiety or they're so much better than me or anything like this. And so my purpose with this is to really show you what I've been through as a human being and really give life to this idea that we are all human beings on this plane. We all have our struggles and our stories and our scars. And also to highlight the fact that when we can share these stories, when we can be open about who we are and where we've been, it allows us to show up authentically beyond what we think we should be presenting as, but to truly just show up in the fullness of who we are. And so again, I want to thank you as we dive into this for holding the space for me. And I hope that in hearing these stories that I'm about to share with you all, you will also find the courage to share your own stories because they are beautiful and wonderful and they have made you who you are today. So with that being said, my birth parents divorced when I was 4 years old. My mom remarried a wonderful man at age 7, but shortly after he did become an alcoholic, and he and I butted heads quite often due to our temperaments. I was raised Christian, but I did step away from the church very gradually. I was raised in the Nazarene church with a lot of those very strict and dogmatic religious principles, which when I was younger served me really well. But as I started to grow out of it, I did realize that it wasn't allowing me to be the fullest expression of who I came to this earth to be. So I gradually stepped away from the church. There were also some incidents with my family and how the church handled them that were not as supportive as I felt that they should have been. And so it was a really natural step for me to just step away from Christianity. And I began to explore other religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, all of these different sides of looking at the world because I really wanted to know. I was so curious about, I've always called myself a why person. I want to know why things happen. Why is life the way it is? And I found that in studying all of the world religions, I started to create a thread of all of the common themes that flow through all of them. And this is a lesson that didn't make it into this presentation, so I'm going to share it now. I think that there is something beautiful about understanding that the truth is relative, meaning that we have the universal truth, we have the absolute truth of how the universe functions, and that is in the energy, in the experience of that energy. And so when we try and take that experience and boil it down to the level of human thought, where we can consciously understand something, we're naturally going to lose some of that inherent truth. We're going to lose some of that fullness of the experience of the capital T truth. And it's going to boil down to a lowercase t truth, that truth that we can understand on a human level. And so as I started studying other world religions, I really saw that play out, that all of these religions were presenting that capital T truth, but because it was being boiled down to a human level, essential bits started to be warped or become missing. And so when we look at them all together, I found a lot of healing and solace for myself in finding all of the threads that connect them and finding the capital T truth that was hidden underneath the lowercase t truth. In addition to that, I was a classical ballet dancer for 16 years. I started dancing and doing ballet when I was 3 or 4, and I did stop when I was 18. I ended up developing severe health issues. They started when I was 12 years old, when I got my first period, and they went on until I was 18. So I did have actually, they went on longer than that, but the crux of them ended when I was 18. So I was stuck in very intense health issues for 6 to 8 years. I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, adrenal failure, hypothyroidism, IBS, extreme allergies, hormonal imbalances, amenorrhea, and eating disorders. Essentially, my body was in such a state of stress that my organs started to shut down on themselves. And so in that, I fought as much as I could to stay with ballet because it was everything that I knew and everything that I was up to that point. I ate, slept, breathed, everything that was ballet for me. That was who I was. And when I was 18, I actually ended up having to let ballet go in order to support my health because my organs were quite literally failing and my body was what felt like at the time failing me. And so I ended up having to leave ballet. Through the process of healing myself and going to numerous Western medical doctors and not finding any answers. Again, you can imagine all of the doctor's appointments that I had over 7 years of being quite ill. I did start to find the first thing that I found in the alternative therapy realm was traditional Chinese medicine. I started looking at the meaning of the organs that were being affected, particularly my adrenals, and looking into what is it that was causing those illnesses to occur. And through that, I found, of course, the emotional connections of energy, and I started unraveling what would become a full picture of why my health was the way it was, which we'll get to in a second. A couple years, well, actually, it would have been, I ended dance in March of 2019, and I began college in August of 2019. So in my haste to forget the pain of having to leave behind ballet, I went right into college. I began as a nursing major when I was 18. I was really harshly bullied, and I had my first few incidents of self-harm and major depression. I ended up switching my major to psychology and diving into research, into trauma research. And last year, I dropped out in my senior year of college, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I can say confidently that it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Throughout this process, I have battled with severe PTSD from childhood abuse that occurred by my biological father from ages 2 to 4. I've also had severe depression, anxiety, and panic disorder. I'm really proud to be able to sit before you guys now and share this because this is something that even a couple years ago, even earlier last year, I would never have been able to share. So it's, to me, a testament to my own healing and the work that I have done that I'm able to share these things with you all. And then, of course, through all of that, I started to kind of pick up pieces that led me to where I am today. I taught myself how to create websites and how to edit podcasts and how to run social media, which is how I started working with Reiki Cafe. I found Reiki when I was 18 years old. I became a Reiki master by the time I was 19, and then I was teaching here with Reiki Cafe later that same year. I taught myself intuitive connection and found channeling, and all of the other pieces started to fall into place. And so, of course, you might be thinking that that's not a lot of time to be where I am, but in the process, I did really find that age is not the way that we perceive it in human terms. And I came to realize that I've lived many, many lifetimes before this one, and this is just a lifetime of remembering and coming to understand all of the spiritual lessons that I've learned in the past and apply them tangibly in my own life. So that kind of sets the backbone for what we're going to talk about today, and we'll fill in the blanks as we go. So the first lesson that I learned from the beginning was it's okay to not be okay. And I know that this is something that gets tossed around quite often, this idea of being where you are, and it's become almost a cliche, but I think it is so important. And when we share about it, we often miss the point, because what happens oftentimes is when we're struggling. For me, it was when I was struggling with depression and anxiety and PTSD. I wanted to cover it all up. I wanted other people to think that I was okay, think that I had it all together, because on some level it felt like a failing if I let them see that I was falling apart. And so in the process of that, I actually had a very dear friend who went through his own period of experiencing abuse and coming to me for help. And in that process, I was able to watch him be safe enough with me to let himself not be okay. And it was amazing, the transformation that occurred in him when he found someone with whom he could be safe and open and let himself fully fall apart. Because what happens when we are pushing against our lessons, pushing against the wounds that are hurting us so much, and we're pretending that we have it all together, that everything is okay, what happens is that we start to deny that there's a wound in the first place, and it starts to fester, and we try and hide it away, push it into the closet, and eventually we've pushed so much into the closet that it's just going to all come tumbling out. And I think this is something that we're starting to see in our society today that hasn't been known for many, many years, but we're starting to see it today, this culture of being able to speak up when we're not okay. But often, thanks to things like social media and especially Instagram, there seems to be this urge to have an image of what it looks like to not be okay. That idea of, I'm not okay, but everything's fine. It's like making an excuse for ourselves, like, I'm not okay, but I will be. There's always that but, there's always that something that's holding us back. And we feel like it's wrong to not be okay. And this is something that has been such a huge change in my own personal journey, is realizing that not being okay is part of human life. We are not designed as human beings to be 100% happy and joyful and clear all of the time. If we were designed to never have problems, we wouldn't be human. We could just stay in the spiritual realm and be our full spiritual selves and not endure the suffering that comes with being human. And this is something we'll get to later on, but I think it's so important. And it was such a turning point for me when I realized that not being okay is a natural, normal, intrinsic part of being human. And so when you let yourself embrace that, you let yourself embrace this part of your humanity that was otherwise unseen. And I think this is also something that is so important, is this idea of knowing that these hard things, knowing that these moments when we're not okay allow us to become who we are tomorrow. If the things that in my life made me feel like I wasn't okay hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here speaking with you all today. And so knowing that it is truly okay to not be okay, mostly because it's part of being human, but also because it's leading you where you're going to go next. Lesson number 2 is one of my favorites. It is, life will always give you exactly what you need. And what I mean by this is not that life is going to be all roses and sunshine and rainbows, but that when you need someone to talk to, life will give it to you. When you need a teacher, you'll find one. When you need a moment to rest, life will find a way to make it happen. And I think that we've all seen this in our journeys, these moments where we feel like we're at the breaking point and suddenly something shifts, these moments when we feel like we don't have an answer and 2 days later the answer comes knocking on our door. There is an inherent beauty to life in the flow of it. And if we can allow ourselves to trust it, if we can allow ourselves to just fully be where we are, even if where we are is uncomfortable, When we can allow ourselves to fully sit in the flow of human life, it will take us exactly where we need to go. I think oftentimes when we're in these situations, or even just living our daily life, it can feel like we have to be the ones controlling life. We have to be the ones to make sure the taxes get paid and the bills are filed, and or taxes are filed and bills are paid and the kids are fed and everything's done and ready. And we have to be in control. We have to be able to see where we're going next, what's going to happen tomorrow. We have to plan our schedules, all of these things. And it can lead to this feeling that life is a chaotic mess and we are the only ones holding it together. But really what's happening is our minds, our human minds, bless them, are chaotic messes. And life is the one taking care of them. And so the more we can allow ourselves to rest and be held by the flow of life, the more we will come to understand and to see that life will always give you exactly what you need. And to me, there are so many examples of this, but the most recent one was earlier last year. Like I mentioned, I had switched my major to psychology in college, and I was beginning research on trauma. And I took an abnormal psych class. I remember sitting in this class, and we had a module on PTSD. And at the time, I had been through my first kind of what I call round of PTSD the previous year. I had been in therapy really intensive in the past summer. And so I was sitting here watching these slides in my class with PTSD going, I'm good. I had that. I don't anymore. And I remember when she clicked to the slide that showed the symptoms, I remember thinking, pardon my French, but I was like, oh shit, I'm not healed. I'm not. I thought I was, but I was really just, like we said with this one, I was letting myself pretend to be okay. And so from there, it was this really beautiful process of being in this position where I was in a way forced to confront the trauma and the symptoms that I was carrying because of it. In the process of researching trauma, as well as taking these psychology classes, I really came to see how much of my life had been taken over by the aftermath of what I had been through when I was a child. And in my effort to be okay, instead of not being okay, I had glazed over them. And through that process, it led to a really intensive year last year of personal growth and panic attacks and flashbacks and really, really intense healing. But now that I am on the other side of that, I can honestly say that had I not been in that semester in college, had I not had that experience of sitting in front of that slideshow and seeing the symptoms of my life displayed in a textbook, I would never have had the courage to dive in and actually heal what needed to be healed. And I can honestly tell you that I know that life knew that. Life knew that if it didn't present it to me in that way, I would continue to shove it down and shove it down and shove it down. And so through the process of just living in the flow of life, I was guided to exactly where I needed to be in order to heal. And I love this example because it also shows that sometimes what you need is not gentle. Sometimes what you need is those times that are hard so that you can get to the other side. So lesson number 3 is know when to let go. And this is such a big one. And there's 2 sides to it. There's knowing when to let go of something tangible. For me, this was ballet. I was really, really sick starting when I was just turning 17. And I held on for a year and a half. I held on so hard, trying to force my body to heal, trying to manipulate my schedule so that I could continue dancing. At the time, I was dancing probably 50 or 60 hours a week. I was at the studio from 8 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. And I remember there were so many times where I was so physically ill that I would have to sit down in the middle of class and try not to vomit. And even in that, even when my body was essentially being tortured by my desire to hold on to this dream that I once had, I still held on and I held on and I held on until eventually a doctor told me, you have to stop or you're not going to be able to keep going. And I remember that was such a powerful moment for me because, again, going back to lesson number 2, life gave me exactly what I needed. I needed someone to look me in the eye and say, you are physically harming yourself holding on to this dream in order to be able to let it go. And at the same time, that moment made me look back at the past year and realize that I should have let it go a long time ago. And I wasn't able to. I didn't have the courage. And I don't regret that because it was a beautiful lesson for me. And it was something, that year and a half of intense struggle was something that allowed me to, again, get to where I am today. But I needed that perspective to be able to look back and say, I should have let it go when it was ready to let go. That year and a half was so much harder than it needed to be because I was so afraid to let go. And the other side of this is knowing when to let go of the stories that you tell yourself. And my favorite example of this actually happened earlier this month. Like I mentioned last year, I was really entrenched in these symptoms of PTSD and working through my own healing. And I remember in January, so the beginning of January this year, I went to an appointment with my therapist and I was telling her about the situation that had made me so frustrated. And frustration and anger is an emotion that I haven't let myself feel for most of my life. And I've created a story around that. The reason I don't let myself feel that is because it was punished so harshly when I was a child, when I had anger. And I was telling her about the situation that made me frustrated. And then I started telling her the reasons that I thought I was frustrated about. And I know this is happening because this happened when I was a kid and it made me think this, and now this is the belief and blah, blah. And my therapist cut me off and she looked at me and she said, what if it was just a frustrating situation? And I have never felt so put in my place in a therapy session as I was in that moment, because it was just this eye-opening moment of realizing that I had carried that story of my trauma. I had carried that story of woe is me, look at what happened to me and what it did to me for too long. I was ready to let that go. I was ready to just say, I'm frustrated because this was a frustrating situation, instead of dragging that with me and saying, I'm frustrated because I was hurt when I was a child. And that has been such a powerful revelation for me, because we talk so often about how awareness is the first step to healing, and it is. It absolutely is. And once we've been through that awareness, once we've processed things, the next step is knowing when to let go. And that's something that I don't think I was ever taught in this spiritual journey, right? Everybody talks about awareness and getting there and processing and healing. And so few people get to the point where they're ready to know when to let go. And so that has been a really beautiful lesson in my own life that's still playing out to this day. So lesson number 4 is it's okay to do things wrong. And I will give an example of this from my own life. I mentioned at the beginning of this that when I was really ill, I also had eating disorders. And one of my swings in an eating disorder, I was anorexic for a while, and then I swing into a binge eating disorder. And I remember speaking with my mom about it, and we decided to take me to a nutritionist who specialized in eating disorders. So she was a psychologist and a nutritionist. And I remember sitting in her office and just telling her, I am so tired of controlling this. I am so tired of trying to count all my calories and have the portions right and exercise enough to do whatever. And I remember I had heard through the process of learning about traditional Chinese medicine and energy work, etc., I had learned about intuitive eating. And I told her that I think this is what I really want to do. I want to try intuitive eating. And I remember walking out of that appointment and sitting with my mom and telling her the plan that this nutritionist and I had come up with to get me started on intuitive eating. And I remember my mom looking at me and saying, it seems like a really terrible idea to give someone who is addicted to food a free license to eat whatever they want. And I remember completely understanding where she's coming from, because again, eating disorders, especially binge eating disorders where it was like an addiction. I was addicted to both the control of the food and also food itself. And her point was, you wouldn't give an alcoholic a full bottle of wine and say, pace yourself. And at the same time, I knew in my heart of hearts that this was what I was supposed to do. I knew that if I tried to control it and do the portions and the things and the blah, 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 that it wouldn't go well. And so in her eyes, I was doing it the wrong way. I was healing myself the wrong way. And I think many people might have agreed with her. But I can honestly say that by making that choice, I now am completely free from any disordered eating whatsoever. And it was only because I was willing to do it wrong. I was willing to take the path that felt right for me, instead of listening to what everybody else outside of me thought I should have done. And I think that is so powerful, because we live in a society where we are pressured in a way to do things in a specific way. We're pressured to follow the path, to do what's been done before us, to fit into this mold of what it looks like. And there can be so much fear When we step out of that mold, there might be judgment from other people. There might be this feeling that we're going to fail. There is so much that happens. But when we know inside of ourselves that something is right for us, again, going back to lesson number 2 of life will always give you exactly what you need. When life tells us, when our intuition, when our soul is crying out for us to make a decision that to other people might seem wrong, it doesn't mean that it is absolutely wrong. It just means that it's wrong for them, but it's right for us. Our intuition, our souls know what is right for us. And it is absolutely in your best and highest good to follow that voice within you, even if it means doing things wrong. Lesson number 5 is know your place. And I know when I say that, some people are immediately going to perk up and be like, but that sounds like you're trying to put me in a box or put me in a corner and tell me to know your place. And that's actually the exact opposite of what I'm doing. And again, I will illustrate this lesson with a story. When I was in nursing school, I was, again, battling with depression and anxiety and still some of my residual health issues. And so I was facing a lot of chronic fatigue. I didn't have what felt like the same amount of stamina as my peers. I was also in a place where my beliefs, as you can imagine, being an alternative energy practitioner in a nursing school, was not widely accepted. And so I was in this position where every day I woke up and I felt like I was constantly fighting myself. I was fighting my body and my health to be able to keep going. I was fighting my natural inclination to rest and my own natural rhythms that, had I listened to them, would have helped me heal faster. But I was also going against my soul and what I knew to be true by trying to fit into this institution that prized science over anything. And so I switched to psychology. And then, of course, you know how that went with psychology and uncovering my PTSD and diving into the deep of those symptoms. And through that overwhelm of symptoms and those realizations that I had, I took a gap semester. I took a step away from school entirely. And in that, life, again, had created the space for me to use all of these little tools and techniques and tricks that I had created for myself, like building a website, like blogging, like editing podcasts, like running social media, to create a full-time job for myself, so that by the end of my gap semester, not only had I cleared out so much of those PTSD symptoms, but I had also created this space where I set my own schedule, where I was able to fully embrace the ideologies that I held about energy and healing and life. And I was able to honor my body, rest when I needed to rest, be awake when I needed to be awake, move when I needed to move. And it was beautiful. And in that, I have realized that when I say know your place, what I mean is know where you are meant to fit. Not know where you should fit, know where other people think you should go, but know where you can go, where you will be able to fully embody and step into yourself. If you are in a position, in a place where it feels like you are constantly fighting against yourself and everything is hard and everything is wrong, it may be because you're not meant to be there. And that doesn't mean that you need to rush the transition of finding something else, but it does mean, again, awareness is the first step to healing, bringing in this awareness that when you find your true place, when you find that place where you can stand in authenticity for you, whatever that looks like, that is when things will be easy and free, and you will be able to feel whole because you're no longer trying to force yourself into a position that you were never meant to be in. If I had stayed in nursing, if I had stayed in psychology, I probably would be carrying so many labels with me right now about not having as much energy, being constantly ill, having a bad memory, all of these things, because I was pushing myself to be in a place, in a rhythm, in a time that I wasn't meant to be in. But because I've stepped back, I've allowed myself to do it wrong. I stepped away from school. I created my own business. I created my own life around myself. I'm now in this place where everything I do comes from this place of inner excellence. It comes from this place of inner passion and truth and knowing, because I have found my place. And I think that is more of a comforting lesson than some of these other ones have, of knowing that if something feels wrong, it might be because it's wrong for you. And again, can you be willing to let go of what you should be doing to find where you are supposed to be, to find the place where you can be that fullest expression of yourself? So lesson number 6 is everyone carries the scars of this life. Being a human being is hard. We're all just looking for permission to be okay, and we're all doing the best we can. This is something that you will hear me say over and over and over again if you come work with us at Reiki Cafe, is that this is not easy. Being alive is not easy. There are things that we can do to increase the ease and joy and flow of life, but there is not a single person who moves through this life unscathed. And I think this is so important, especially for me, but also for other people to hear, because there is a tendency, a perfectly human, innate, intrinsic tendency when we are suffering to feel like we are the only ones who have suffered like this, to feel like nobody else understands, to feel like we are so alone in what we're going through. And so when we can realize that being human is hard, that we all have the scars of being alive, it can take away that feeling of isolation and instead replace it with a feeling of community, because we're realizing that we're all in this together. Some people may heal at different rates. Some people may find their place, find their path more easily than others, but it doesn't mean that they haven't been hurt before. It doesn't mean that they don't have those scars. And when we can realize that, when we can have the compassion, not only with ourselves, but also with others, to say, even if their hurting is different than my hurting, they still have those scars. They still carry it with them. It makes it so much easier to understand that we're all just looking to each other for permission to be okay. We're all just looking to someone else to tell us that how we're feeling, how we're doing, how we're living is okay. And so if you can give yourself that permission, again, it's okay to not be okay. If you can give yourself that permission to be exactly where you are, wherever you are, then you're giving others the permission to do the same. And when we do that, there's this beautiful phrase that I'm always reminded of, and it's, we're all just walking each other home. And when we can allow ourselves to realize that everybody has scars, everybody is scared, and everybody is just doing the best they can with what they have, it gives us so much more ability and capacity to be kind to ourselves, but also to be kind to others, and to remember that no matter how it feels, we are not alone. And it also gives us an opening where we can drop our judgments of other people and remember that we have absolutely no idea what they're going through. Just like you probably wouldn't look at me and think about all of the things that have happened that I shared a few minutes ago, they still happened. I still carry those scars in me. And though they might be healed, they're still there. Those experiences still happened. And so even if you can't see it from the outside, know that there is a whole world happening on the inside of each and every person. Lesson 7 is your healing heals others. And this is so important. If you've worked with Reiki Cafe, you've probably heard Christine talk about Ho'oponopono, which is this Hawaiian practice of forgiveness and healing in yourself to be able to heal others. And it's this really beautiful practice. If you haven't heard of it, I highly encourage you to look it up. But I remember this lesson came to me when I was 19. For some background, my mom had grown up in a Christian household, but when she was 19, she was given a Ouija board for her birthday, I believe, and she started playing it with her friends, and she ended up having a demonic attachment come in, and it created chaos in her life for several years. And so in her mind, she had attached spirituality outside of Christianity with evil and bad and harshness and chaos. And so when I was 19, the same age as her, and I started diving into Reiki and oracle cards and traditional Chinese medicine and all of these new age, as she called them, beliefs and ideas, she was very scared. She looked at me at 19, exploring the realm of spirituality, and she saw herself at 19, exploring the side of spirituality that was dark and was scary and led to some of the hardest moments of her life. And as I was able to, again, let myself have the courage to do it wrong, let myself move forward in this path because I knew it was what was right for me, even if my mom wasn't sure. What happened was, as I went deeper into my spiritual path, she began to heal her past as well. She began to see that her experience is not everybody's experience. She began to open up to Reiki to energy work to seeing beyond the scope of Christianity that she had placed herself in and healing those wounds. And we now have regular conversations about what she's uncovering in her own life and what she's working through and what I'm working through. And these really beautiful openings, simply because I was willing, again, to do it wrong and to focus on my own healing and being able to see that reflected in the outside world. So knowing that when you heal yourself, it really is that butterfly effect that goes out into the world of this amazing impact that you have on the world around you, even if all you're focusing on is yourself, even if you can't see it, knowing that you are healing heals others. Lesson 8 is only you can heal yourself. And I think this is so important because even if you're going to therapy, even if you're working with someone like Christine or myself for coaching sessions or shamanic Reiki or anything, even if you're going and having someone hold your hand like a best friend or a parent or a partner while you're experiencing things, at the end of the day, you are the one doing the work. You are the one who is healing yourself. And I remember very clearly the moment that I realized this in my own life. I was doing a research project trying to determine if our perception of our traumas impacted our mental health outcomes later in life. So I wanted to see if you viewed your trauma as a growth experience and something that helped make you the way you are today, versus if you saw it as the source of everything terrible in your life and felt that it ruined your life. Would one perspective lead to better mental health outcomes than the other? And the idea behind this was that if that was the case, then we could create therapies that could help to change people's perceptions. And in the process of this research, I was, of course, going through my own healing process and uncovering a lot of my own traumas and my own stories. And I remember the moment when I realized I had to let that research project go, because what I was trying to do is I was trying to manipulate a healing therapy, a healing practice that I could give to people so that I could heal them. But in the process of going through my own work, in the process of healing my own symptoms and my own traumas, I realized that nobody else could do it for me. Even the therapist that I was going to see, even all the healers that I was working with, it was me. And every minute of every day, I remember one practitioner told me it's moment to moment work. And nobody can be with you moment to moment except for yourself. Other people may shine a light, they may hold space for you, they may create that container, they may give you ideas, but at the end of the day, you are the only one who can heal yourself. You are the only one who can take responsibility for your healing. And when you step into that knowledge, when you step into that power, it gives you the courage and the ability to go beyond the fear that you have about healing and really step into who you are fully. So only you can heal yourself. Lesson number 9 is there is always another option. And what I mean by this is so many things. There's always another perspective, right? They say it takes two to tango. There's two sides to every coin. The way that you're seeing the world always has an opposite. There's always going to be someone else who sees it differently. There's always going to be someone else who thinks you're wrong when you think you're right. There's always going to be another way to approach a situation. There's always going to be another way that you could plan, that you could write, that you could eat, that you could live. There's always another way. There's never just one. And on a more spiritual, more metaphysical level, for every thought your mind has, your soul will also have an opinion. And what I mean by that is there are two guiding forces in our lives. There are our minds, our human minds, that can see the problems, that want to fix them, that collect all of that data of all of our past experiences and try to transmute it into a perception of how the future might possibly go. And then there's our soul, that part of ourself that is connected to all that is, that part of ourself that is expansive and truthful and loving. And so for every problem that our mind sees, our soul will have an answer. For every possibility that our mind creates, our soul will have a plan. There's always two sides to every coin. And if we can allow ourselves to have the grace and the ability to create a separation between ourselves and the thing that we're struggling with, we'll be able to see that other side. And often it's in that perspective where we find the answers. Einstein had an amazing quote of a problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness with which it was created, meaning that in order to solve a problem, you have to turn to the other option. You have to turn inward to your soul, inward to the other level of consciousness through which you can solve this problem. And so in those moments when it feels like you're stuck, when it feels like you're blocked, when it feels like this person isn't doing what you want, or you can't understand why they're seeing it this way. Always reminding yourself there is always another option. There's always another perception. There's always another opportunity waiting for you around the corner. You just have to be willing to allow yourself to see it. And the final lesson is one of my absolute favorites. Lesson number 10, the rules never existed in the first place. We've talked so much today about what we should be doing, about the boundaries that have been put on us, about the expectations that we have, right? For me, one of those was that you go to college, you finish your degree. If you don't finish your degree, you're never going to be successful. And I realized that those rules, these lessons that we've been passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down, were just created in the past to keep people safe in the past. They were rules, they were expectations, they were guidelines that were laid out so that people could be successful in the world that they lived in at the time. But if you think about it, that tradition, these things that were being passed down, is in a way just peer pressure from our ancestors. It's just this pressure to do things the way that it's been done before, because we're so scared to step into change. Humans are afraid of change. They're afraid of what happens next. They're afraid of feeling, seeing, believing something new. And in that, we try and create these boundaries. Our minds create these boundaries, these lessons, these rules to try and keep us safe. But the problem with that is that we create them at the time. We create them for the moment in which we are existing. And as humanity moves forward, as we grow, as we learn, as we age, the circumstances are different and the rules no longer fit. And not only that, but they never existed in the first place. These rules were created by our human minds. They are not eternal lessons from the universe. Just like I shared at the beginning of this, those rules are a lowercase t truth. They are a truth from the human perspective, but they are not a capital T truth. They are not the truth of the universe. The only truth of the universe is that here now in this earth, you are free to explore, evolve, and expand in yourself and in your truth and in your soul, however you see fit. That is the only rule in the universe. Everything else has been added on top, created by human consciousness to try and keep us safe, to try and make sense of something that's never going to make sense, to try and cover up the capital T truth with a lowercase t truth so that we can have a guidebook through which we will live life. And it doesn't work that way. It can. By all means, you are absolutely welcome to create however many rules in this life you want. But first, have that awareness that the rules are illusions. They only exist if you decide they exist. They aren't that capital T truth. They never existed in the first place. And in that realization, you can give yourself the freedom to let go of the ones that no longer serve you. So those are the top 10 lessons that I have learned from my life thus far. And of course, I feel like I could continue to talk for 3 more hours about all of the things that life has shown me. And it has truly been such an amazing process to sit down and put this together, to really think about, if I could only bring 10 lessons to earth, if I could only give away 10 bits of knowledge from what I've experienced so far, what would those be? And of course, in that, I want to say that all of this is just my perspective. All of this is just my experience, my understanding. It is not something where I want you to feel like you have to feel this way, or you have to agree with me, or you have to anything. There's nothing in my presentation that is an absolute capital T truth. They are my lowercase t truths. They are what I have come to learn from my spiritual healing perspective. And I'm so overjoyed to be able to share them with you. So as you're listening, as you're thinking, if you start to think of what your top 10 would be, I would love to hear them. You can send me an email at isabel@ReikiCafeUniversity.com. And we'll have a conversation about what your top 10 are, because I want to hear from you. You've heard my story, and now I want to hear from you. So with that being said, I would love to open up the floor for, what are your questions? What are your thoughts? What is your top takeaway from today's presentation? Not from your life, I know that's a big question, but from today's presentation, what was your top takeaway? Were there any aha moments, any of those things? And as you're putting those in the chat, I'm going to get our names ready for our giveaway and then tell you a little bit about Reiki coaching. So feel free to share in the chat, share in your questions, your comments, your takeaways. And while we're doing that, I'm going to show you a video that has never been seen before. So when I was 18 and I started working with Reiki Cafe, we were in the process of creating what was then our Chakra Clairvoyant coaching certification. It has since turned into our Reiki coaching certification. But as we were creating this, as we were co-creating the content, I put myself in the place of a student and I took the course as if I were a student while I was an apprentice. And at the end of it, we were sharing our experiences. And I had the opportunity to share what that experience was like for me. And so while I am writing down the things from the giveaway, I'm going to go ahead and let you all see this video, this testimonial from 2 years ago now of my experience with taking this Reiki coaching program.
In the past 3 months, I mean, my life has literally completely changed. Like, there's nothing about my life now that's the same as it was in January if we do the full 7. I feel like a snake that's just kind of like shed its skin. Like, I haven't changed, but I'm able to just stand here as who I am without all of the extra layers that I had on top. And there will be times, like, I'm back on campus now, so there will be times interacting with people where I can see those moments where I used to have it, and I can feel how I would have reacted and I would have felt. And now it's so fascinating to be able to kind of watch that process happen, and then on the side, be able to recognize like how I truly just me am living and being. So I'm not different, but I'm completely different in that it's just like a shedding, and I'm able to just sit here as me instead of a projection of who I feel like I'm supposed to be, or a projection of what happened in the past.
I absolutely love watching that video now because it was so relevant at the time. And that shedding that happened through that program was one of the catalysts for some of the most amazing experiences of my life. And so when we're talking about Reiki coaching, when we're sharing this course with you all, know that I've been there. I'm not just telling you about this program as a teacher. I'm not just saying, look at this thing we made, but I'm telling you as a student, I've lived it. I've lived the experience of being in the program, of seeing how transformative these 5 months can be simply by immersing yourself in all of the content. And so Reiki coaching is a program. It's a 5-month healing program. It's designed to take you on a journey through the chakras. So we have one module for every chakra. You'll be trained to unveil the confident, powerful practitioner within you, and you'll be guided through 7 transformational coaching techniques, learning to create magic within your Reiki sessions as you take the reins and guide your client to healing. By combining Reiki, chakras coaching, and more, you create a practice that breaks free of the bonds of tradition and encourages intuitive connection. And so just like I have spoken with you all about being willing to do it wrong, stepping into your truth, finding your capital T truth, knowing what life has in store for you. This program is going to help you do that on an intrinsic, deep, cellular level. And not only will you be able to heal and learn about the chakras and become a masterful practitioner, but you'll also be given the tools to be able to facilitate that transformation in others. I was actually doing a coaching session yesterday. I had a coaching session with an amazing, amazing client. And at the end of it, it was amazing. She has had some back pain in the past. And simply by going through our coaching, simply by using the techniques that are taught in this course, by the end of our session, she was sitting up straighter. She said that her pain was gone. She was able to release years and years and years of trauma that would have taken years and years and years of therapy to work through in a single 90-minute session. This is truly so, so powerful, not just for yourself, but also for your clients. So early bird enrollment for Reiki coaching is now open. You can save, it's almost $1,000 by enrolling now in the program. And so I will put the link in the chat in order for you guys to be able to look at it. Put in your application. Please, 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 please put in your application. There is absolutely nothing to lose. If you are interested, if you've been inspired by this conversation, if you are ready to find your own top 10 lessons, put them into practice, heal from within, and then learn how to facilitate these kinds of transformations and realizations in your clients, If you're ready to have the kind of experience that I had in that testimonial video that I sent you, send in your application. We will make it work. We have payment plans, we have extended options, so many things. But just like I said in today's call, if life is calling you, if your soul is calling you to do something, know that it is for you. And so if your soul is calling you to take Reiki coaching, please, please, please submit the application. I would be so honored to work with you. If it's right for you, if your time is now, you will know and you will feel the call. So with that being said, we will go ahead and do our giveaway now. I have all of our names here in my fancy bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and mix these up. If you haven't yet commented and you are watching us here live, please comment so I can make sure I have your name in the chat. Let's see. Lisa Nowak says, I relate. I feel like I've taken a big, heavy coat of others' negative energy on my path. Absolutely. Sabrina said she was completely blown away by how inspiring this was. Thank you so much for sharing. Marianne said, I always thought of lesson 7 being more from the ego, so it never sat right with me, but your perspective has changed that for me. Let's see. Lesson 7 was your healing heals others. Absolutely. That is such a big one. So glad that was able to feel supportive for you all. Marianne also said I could talk for 3 hours and she would listen. Renee says, I believe that you were supposed to bring your mom to this side of healing. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Lisa Nowak says, you are so vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here, Lisa. Marta says, I'm so happy I could be here. I have a random free Wednesday morning. Yes, yes, you were supposed to be here. Absolutely. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our giveaway. We'll start with a $350 scholarship for Reiki coaching. Have our first name here. Our $350 scholarship goes to Lisa Nowak. Lisa, my friend, I know that you're here in the chat with us. So you are our scholarship winner for the $350 scholarship for Reiki coaching. I think the universe wants you to join this course. So we will be in touch with you soon. Please fill out your application as well. Next, we'll do a $250 scholarship. Have our name here. $250 scholarship is going to Marta Carlson Wilson. Marta is currently in our shamanic Reiki practitioner class. So Marta, if you would like to complete your training and join Reiki coaching, you are now the proud receiver of a $250 Reiki coaching scholarship. We'll do another $250 scholarship. We've got 2 that are stuck to each other here. Let's see. Next $250 scholarship is going to Renee McCoy. Renee is also one of our shamanic practitioner students. So if you are curious about joining the program, know that if you are already a student of Reiki Cafe in our shamanic course, you do get 50% off of Reiki coaching in addition to your scholarship. And we'll do one more. Let's see. Let's do let's do a $350 scholarship. One more. This final scholarship is going to Angela Stapley. Not sure how I'm pronouncing your name, my friend, but you are the winner of our $350 scholarship. So I'm going to put those in the chat now. $350 going to Lisa Nowak and Angela Stapley. Forgive me if I am pronouncing that wrong. And $250 going to Marta and Renee. So if you are interested in joining Reiki coaching, if you are one of our amazing scholarship winners, please fill out your application. I'm so excited to be able to support you. Please let me know if you have any questions. And like I said, I truly want to be here to support you all, to hear about your stories. Vulnerability is a two-way street. Just like I said earlier, it takes 2 to tango. So I would love to hear your takeaways from today, your top 10 lessons from your life. And I am so honored that you guys shared this space with me today. And I would be absolutely honored and blessed and grateful to be able to share space with you in the Reiki coaching program to help you facilitate these kinds of realizations and transformations in your own life as you learn to facilitate them and hold space for others. So thank you. I will hold space now for any additional questions, shares, comments, or concerns. But if you are ready to leave, if you are ready to begin your Wednesday, thank you for sharing the space with me today. Sending you so much love and gratitude. So let me know in the chat if you have any final thoughts, any questions, whether it's about the presentation or just about me in general, anything like that, let me know in the chat. I would love to continue the conversation. My tea is cold now. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Sabrina. So much love for all of you. Beautiful. Well, if there aren't any other questions, shares, comments, or concerns, we will go ahead and wrap up for today. Once again, thank you for being here. I would love for you to message me on Facebook, send me an email at isabel@ReikiCafeUniversity.com, and we can continue the conversation. I would love to see you in our Reiki coaching program. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day and you find the truth within. Bye, everybody.